Hey guys, welcome to my channel Run Free and Strong. I'm Rayto. We're back at the Appalachian Trail in Kent, Connecticut for episode 4. Just enjoying the view here and taking a look at the first mountain we're going to climb. The first mile or so is mostly uphill, so won't be very runnable, but we're going to do the best we can. Let's get started. This is a gnarly trail. Gnarly. Freaking awesome. One of the higher peaks here on the AT in Connecticut. Proof. The view is stunning here. Holy cow. Look at this. That's gorgeous. Wow. A little bit past the peak of the foliage. I'm sure a couple of weeks ago this looked even more stunning, but all right. Woo. We got to go down this. It's not going to look as steep on the camera, but let me tell you, this is, we'll see on the, we'll see when we look at the data, when we look at the data, we'll see the grade, but this is pretty crazy. Running along the Housatonic River here. Really beautiful. Very different from the climbing. Still feeling good. I'm going to turn around soon. Almost 7 miles into my run. Just a quick shot of what I'm about to climb up. And it's just crazy. It's Sunday and it's fun day. It's absolutely 70 degrees out, believe it or not. Sunny, dry, no wind, absolutely perfect conditions for our Sunday long run. This will also be a dress rehearsal for me for a 100-mile Yeti virtual challenge coming up in about 2 weeks. So we'll see how this 12-mile Saturday, 25-mile Sunday, 37-mile total will go. Going to adopt the ultra trail strategy of running 3 minutes, walking 3 minutes, and alternating that just to keep the heart rate really low and go as far and as long as we can go. So let's get the run started. 17 miles into my run. Still feeling good, tired, but good. Mentally very strong. 3 hours, 14 minutes. First 12 miles, I ran 3 minutes, walked 3 minutes and alternated. And then I started 3 minutes running, 2 minutes walking. And it still feels good. Hey guys, we did it. Done. Sunday long run, 25 miles in the bank, 4 hours, 40 minutes. Awesome, totally stoked. Hang on there. We're gonna do a quick recap, looking at the Stryd data, and then I'm gonna do another quick deep dive into Stryd, focusing on elevation change. Let's do a review of the week of November 2nd. It was an amazing week. I ran 61.25 miles, or about 100K, on 5 days of running. I had a recovery day on Monday and a recovery day on Friday. In total, I spent 13 hours on my feet, 3 hard efforts, the Thursday 15-mile Appalachian Trail run, and then on the weekend, 37 miles between Saturday and Sunday, a 12-mile run on Saturday, and a 25-mile long run on Sunday. And for the week, I'm totally stoked to have reached 10,000 feet of vertical gain, or about 3,000 meters. So clearly the week has been very productive. My body feels a little bit tired, so another rest day on Monday, and then an easy run on Tuesday, and we'll see how the rest of this coming week goes. I hope you find today's Stryd tutorial useful. It's aimed at the trail runner who cares about elevation change in training and races, but it may be of interest to distance runners in general who run on different terrain and surfaces. For this tutorial, I've relied on research and reviews from various fitness tech websites as well as GPS mapping websites. While I won't mention them all, there are 2 in particular that I found useful, and I've included links to both websites in the video description below. The first is Felt Runner, who is among several fitness tech analysts and evaluates and reviews tech gear with a focus on marathons and ultramarathons. He actually used a surveying wheel to measure a technical single track trail following the USA Track and Field certification process to evaluate Stryd accuracy against a benchmark GPS watch. The second is a platform called GPS Visualizer that interprets GPS data and creates useful maps and is compatible with both Google Maps and Google Earth. The research is conclusive that Stryd is more accurate than GPS and barometric altimeters. Stryd is also more accurate than other foot pods. Why? Stryd uses a 9-axis sensor, while most other foot pods use a 3-axis sensor. There are numerous other factors to consider, including how the foot pod is integrated with our GPS watch, the GPS watch settings, and how the foot pod and GPS watch are calibrated. For this tutorial, let's keep it relatively simple and not go down that rabbit hole. Calculating elevation gain is difficult. The math is the easy part. Unfortunately, the elevation data is often inaccurate. As we'll see, garbage in, garbage out. I didn't know this, but there are 4 methods to collect elevation data. The first is GPS data, which is the most common but least accurate. It's decent on horizontal measurements, bad on vertical measurements, especially on mountain trails. Satellite signals simply can't get into the gaps and crevices and will bounce around. The second is something called DEM, which is the acronym for Digital Elevation Points, and it's a database of known elevations from topographic surveys and orbiting radar. It's great for roads and clear areas where remote sensing spacecraft can see. The third is barometric data. Many newer and more premium GPS watches have a barometric altimeter. This can be accurate if properly calibrated and weather doesn't drastically change during a run. The fourth, which I'll mention, is manual calculations by means of manually adding known elevations to track points For all intents and purposes, it's inefficient and therefore not really feasible. For trail runners, the challenge is if a track goes along a hillside or valley bottom or ridge line, it's really going to create havoc with the elevation data. The elevation gain is impacted both by horizontal inaccuracy, leading to what's known as horizontal drift, and vertical inaccuracy, which compounds the elevation gain calculation. In addition, there's a known issue with Strava and similar platforms. Strava consumes GPS data from our watches and applies its own filters to reduce noise. I found that Strava elevation gain is generally less accurate than even the Garmin elevation change. To provide the background and context for the Stryd tutorial, let's review the Appalachian Trail run I did on Thursday. The quick metrics are 15 miles out and back, so 7.5 miles out, 7.5 miles back, about 4,600 feet of vert according to Stryd, 4 hours, 51 minutes and 40 seconds. Quite a bit of climbing, was a brutal and beautiful run. I used 3 different apps to track my running data, including Garmin Connect, Strava, and Stryd. On the far left, we see the Appalachian Trail run on Stryd, and we see the 4,600 feet of vertical gain. In the middle, we see the Strava app showing about 3,000 feet of vertical gain, so off by about 1,600 feet compared to Stryd. And then on the far right, we see the Garmin data, which is about 3,150 plus or minus vert. So the Garmin Connect data is closer to Strava, which is not surprising given that Strava consumes the data from Garmin, but again, very different from Stryd. Let's take a look at some of the segments in my run to see if we can uncover why the Stryd data is so different from the Strava and the Garmin data. A little bit more background. This is a topographic map showing the out and back run, and I started the run on the Route 341 AT trailhead, which is shown with a green dot on the lower left-hand corner, and then headed along the red marked route to the upper right corner, Canoe Landing. That was 7.5 miles in, turned around and ran the same exact trail back. The entire run was a single track trail. This is a screenshot of the Garmin elevation profile, and just to quickly point out, again, we start from the left, running outbound to the middle of the profile, labeled turnaround point, and then we continue back to where it says finish. And I've circled in red part of the ascent and descent to Caleb Peak, and we see on the left that profile in the red circle looks very different from the profile on the right. It's the same exact elevation profile, the same exact single track trail. So let's take a look at the bird's eye view of my ascent and descent from Caleb's Peak. We see 2 lines representing the outbound and the inbound run. And a couple of things worth noting. One is we see marked in the dashed white lines, very faint, the Appalachian Trail, which is off of the USGS topographic map. It looks like my running is in some places way off the Appalachian Trail. Believe me, I followed all the white blazes, but there's a discrepancy between the USGS maps and the GPS data. The other thing we see is the divergence in quite a few places between the outbound run and the inbound run. And we see this particularly along the ridge line in the upper right quadrant, but also in some of the ascents and descents towards the middle of the map. This is what's known as horizontal drift. Here's another example of a bird's eye view approaching St. John's Ledges and then descending and on the way back ascending from River Road along the Housatonic, we see the same pattern, the Appalachian Trail in dotted white lines, separate from my running. Again, follow the white blazes, was on the trail. We see the outbound and inbound runs diverging in quite a few of the cases along the ridgeline, but also doing the descending. What's notable here is the descent and later the ascent around St. John Ledges. As you saw in the video, I was climbing more so than running in gaps and crevices where I would believe a GPS signal would not be accurate. And finally, to show you a segment on Strava, you can see in the profile below the map, marked in darker gray, the particular mile segment was mile 11. And you can see, according to Strava, the net elevation change during that mile was about 500 to 600 feet. Same thing we saw on the prior maps is the horizontal drift between the outbound run and the inbound run. And you can see some pretty squiggly red lines around St. John's Ledges, which are, way different from the blue lines. So just to recap, the Stryd Power meter is more accurate than GPS or even barometric altimeter data, particularly for trail runners when looking at elevation changes. This may or may not be important to us. For me, I happen to think it's important because I want to train appropriately and accurately, not undertrain, not overtrain. If I'm training for a mountain trail race, I want to make sure I get the right vertical training in. What I wanted to do was share with you my research, my analysis, and my findings. And it's just something to keep in the back of our minds and be aware of. It should not take away or detract in any way from the pleasure that we derive from running and the goals we set and the achievements we accomplish. So let's not go crazy, but it is good to be aware that in particular situations and on particular runs, the data we look at may or may not be accurate. Please leave me a comment below. What are your thoughts on this topic? I would appreciate if you give the video a thumbs up. And if you haven't already subscribed, please consider doing so. I would really appreciate it. Thanks, and see you in the next one.